It has been 50 years since the 1963 March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. Combined with Dr. Martin Luther King's iconic I Have a Dream speech, it's considered by many to be the crowning event of the civil rights movement. As a 9-year-old boy, I watched Dr. King's speech on TV from home in Lansing, Michigan.
So come to this hallowed spot to remind America of the fierce urgency of now. Now is the time to make real the promises of democracy.
For me, watching the speech was a bittersweet experience. I was supposed to have been among the 250,000 people gathered at the Lincoln Memorial for those famous remarks from Dr. King. My grandfather, Reverend Otis Warren, an associate of Dr. King's, was planning to take me there. However, my Big Daddy died July 15th, 6 weeks before the march. A few weeks back, to mark the golden anniversary of the March on Washington, thousands were on hand in the nation's capital to recreate the event. Over the past several weeks, many have been giving their assessment of how far black folks have come since 1963, of how close we've come to realizing Dr. King's dream.
I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character.
Well, Dr. King's little children have all grown up, are in their early to mid-50s now, and are all successful adults, though his oldest daughter, Yolanda, died in 2007 at the age of 51.
I have a dream that one day, even the state of Mississippi, a state sweltering with the heat of injustice, sweltering with the heat of oppression, will be transformed into an oasis of freedom and justice. I have a dream.
In Mississippi today, 16% of the students at its signature university, Ole Miss, are black. A major advance, though still disproportionate with Mississippi's population, which is 38% black. In 1963, there was only one black student at Ole Miss, James Meredith. Also a sign of changing times, Mississippi now has the largest number of black elected officials in the nation.
I have a dream that one day, down in Alabama, with its vicious racists, with its governor having his lips dripping with the words of interposition and nullification, one day right there in Alabama, little black boys and black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and white girls as sisters and brothers. I have a dream today.
In Alabama, black boys and white boys are now united as members of the nation's #1 college football team. By most measures, black Americans are better off now than 50 years ago. The visible symbols of segregation and racism mostly gone now. Those things, racism and segregation, still exist, though to a lesser degree today. In education, for instance, blacks have made significant progress. In 1963, only 26% of blacks had completed high school. Now that figure is 85%. The black poverty rate has fallen from 42% to 28%, though that figure is still nearly double the poverty rate for whites. As far as voting is concerned, last year's presidential election marked the first time in U.S. history that African Americans voted at a higher rate than whites. Now, not everything for blacks these days is better than 50 years ago. The black unemployment rate is higher now. In 1963, black men were 5 times as likely as white men to be jailed or imprisoned. Today, blacks are 6 times as likely to be locked up. The income gap between black and white households is wider in terms of actual dollars than it was 50 years ago. The marriage rate for blacks is half what it was in 1963. The unwed birth rate has more than doubled.
I still have a dream. It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up, live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal.
A recent poll done by the Pew Research Center found that fewer than 1 in 3 Black Americans feel the nation has made enough significant progress toward achieving racial equality. For whites, the figure is less than half. 70% of blacks and 25% of whites feel blacks are not treated equally by the criminal justice system. But that progress has been made is beyond dispute. A mixed-race man, Barack Obama, considered black by American standards, is the nation's chief executive. And a black man, Eric Holder, is the nation's highest law enforcement official as the U.S. Attorney General. We have black CEOs of major corporations, black astronauts, black military generals and admirals, African Americans in nearly every kind of professional pursuit. Black folks have never been more woven into the very fabric of American life as they are today. My personal overall assessment, things for black folks are pretty good in 2013. Still not great, but the nation that my children and grandchildren have been born into is much improved over the one I came into in 1954. A country in which Jim Crow segregation was still the law throughout the South, where millions of black folks below the Mason-Dixon line remained disenfranchised. Interracial marriage was still illegal in nearly 20 states. Yes, for black folks, the America of 2013 is far more inclusive, more tolerant, more enlightened, and offers far more opportunity to succeed than the America of 50 years ago. But, to quote the late Senator Ted Kennedy, the work goes on, the cause endures, the hope still lives, and the dream shall never die.